Okay, big black box. Big black box. It's actually, if you look at it, it's in really nice condition. So what's in the box? Well, what's in the box is something that's been needing a part for several years. It's a tube tester. Let me get the cover popped open here. It is a Precise Model 111 tube tester. Extremely good tube tester. I have, what, 3? Yeah, including this one, 3 of them. I've got so many tube testers, it's not even funny. But, and this is not the tube testers that I'd normally use. I usually use one of my laboratory mutual conductance testers, but these I use for this and probably this model, and one of my most used is like my BK707. I like that one because that one's just so fast. And a large majority of the tubes that I do, that one does mutual conductance. Now it doesn't measure in micromhos, but it's still a fast tube tester. I can quickly sort tubes. See if they're good or bad. Are they worth then testing on another tube tester? But this is a very nice tube tester. Has direct reading in micromhos, so it's not just a good bad scale. You can see GM in thousands. So, but what's wrong with this tube tester is bad meter. Now, I got this thing for a steal, and it's been, God, 8 years. 7, 8 years, it's been a while. I have trouble remembering what I did an hour ago. But yeah, it's been, God, probably close to 8 years, something like that. I got this, and I got it extremely cheap, knowing that meter was bad. Now, when it got shipped to me, to make matters even worse, it got damaged in shipping. Now, what got damaged was the screw that holds the back of the transformer to the bottom of the cabinet was missing. So, and someone had this taken apart, left all of the cabinet screws, or all of these panel screws out, so this could move around in here. Well, the transformer bouncing around buckled the cabinet. Now, I was able to get it straightened out pretty good, and now that I have a new meter, I will be. But yeah, like I say, meter movement was bad. I didn't care. Like I say, I've got 2 others of these, and if nothing else, it was a good source of parts. In case one of my switches, rotary switches, ever went bad or needed the transformer. So, and that's what I often say. Even if I didn't have 2 of these, I needed parts for. This is a tube tester. I did want to get one of these because, like I say, they are very nice instruments. Don't let that hold you up that it's broke, that it has the impossible to find part, because there's no such thing as the impossible to find part. It's just called waiting. Well, I've waited for 7, 8 years, and guess what? I found on eBay a brand new NOS Model 111 Precise Instruments meter movement. Brand new in the box. So now I can get this critter fixed up and change out the few capacitors that are in it and get it calibrated and actually start using this guy. I might take one of my other ones out of line and actually stick this one into service for a while. Kind of like radios, vary which ones I use. But like I say, when I'm doing my most precision measurements, matter of fact, let me just go ahead and do that. I can dig out some of my other daily driver tube testers, and actually I've got something else made by Precise that's really nice. That I can show you, and that's a semiconductor analyzer, which you can actually do, though it does not have a screen, you can actually do curve tracing with it. Just takes a little bit of math and some logarithmic graph paper, basically, but it can be done, and I've done it before with it. But so let me get this off the bench, and I'll get out some of the other ones that I use on a almost daily basis, depending on if I'm working on tube type or solid state. So, hold on a second. Okay, so this is one of 2 of these that I have. I guess you could say actually 3, just under a different name. But these are my pride and joys. because these are true, well, as close as you're going to get to basically a laboratory bench style. I don't mean portable, I mean one that's basically looks like a built into a desk, but a really high-end mutual conductance tester. Now this is a, get in here a little bit so you can see it. This is a Westmore. In fact, right there, you put their name really small, but it's a model 501. But this is exactly the same as a triplet 3444. But known for their being extremely precise, really easy to use tube testers. One of the big advantages of these tube testers is the speed of which you can test multi-section tubes. So let's say you're checking like 12AX7s, 12AU7s, stuff like that, tubes that have dual sections. That's all you got to do, right there. Flip that lever. There's no, you don't have to rechange any dials. There's no knobs to change. You just put the tube in the socket, test one section, test the other section. So it makes testing multi-section tubes extremely easy because there's no having to go back down to the chart. Okay, there's section 1, I got to change a couple knobs. Section 2, I got to change put them to the other ones. It's just test one section, test the other section, you're done. But yeah, like I say, these are when I'm really testing tubes for absolute quality, I guess you could say. This is the go-to tester. Also has noise test provisions. Like I say, just the ultimate in tube tester technology of the day, and still today. And these things command a very high price. $1,500 to $2,000 is what they normally sell for. Like I say, I've got 2 of the Westmore 501s, and I have one of the triplet 3444s. The only real difference there is cabinet color. Of course, the name on it. Now, my understanding is that the Westmore 501 was just a triplet 3444, but it's what they did was basically came out with a subsidiary, Westmore, and this was sold under GSA contract to the government. So that's basically all it is. It's just a government version of the triplet 3444. Internally exactly the same, all the controls, same roll chart, so nothing else is different. But like I say, here's one of my pride and joys. And I can show you some of my other ones that, oh, and another interesting thing on these, they actually have, and I've seen a lot of people sell these tube testers and don't even realize it, but there's this just pulls out, has built-in lights, okay, but there's a storage compartment within. See, all your oddball tube adapters for stuff that the average person will probably never see, but like I say, there's some of the other adapters, and I actually have even more than this, because like I say, I've got several of them, so I've got a couple testers shoved into different, or adapters stored in different ones. Oh, I don't have that down far enough. And then what this connects by just has 2 banana plugs right here for the light bulbs, and they just plug into the 2 banana plugs right there. But that was kind of a neat idea. They had that wasted space down there and figured, well, we might as well do something with it. So why not? And why can't I get this plug back in? Only because I don't have that adapter in the right place. Cord. Okay. So, there we go. And I always store my testers so I don't scratch up the faceplates. I always lay my manual down, push it towards the back, lay my cables with all the sharp edges on them in there, and that way when I close the lid and stand it up on end, if anything, that stuff will slide back to the back, but that way I'm not scratching up the faceplates of my tube testers. Oh, let me go grab another one. Okay, here's another one. As most people can probably tell by the color. Well, of course, the ID label gives it away down there, but this is a Hickok This is in model 800A. Actually, I do store the cord in this one a little bit differently, but still up off the faceplate. You can see how I got it stored in here. Another extremely good tester, very accurate. Now, pretty much none of the testers come to the accuracy that like that Westmore, the triplets will, you know, the 344, the Westmore 501. But for all intents and purposes, these testers are great testers too. You know, God knows how many of this, I don't want to say just this model, but this series, because a lot of them look like this. They made a lot of different models, but they're all extremely good. The main differences there were the compatibility, or what they would work with. So, you know, what tube sockets they came wired for. Of course, this has your smaller tubes and your Nuvis, you can't see it, also has the Nuvistor sockets there. So this covered, you know, some of the latest, or the last style tubes. Even has the light bulb tester in the middle there. But another good tester. So let me pause again. We'll dig out another one. Okay, big blue box. So that probably gives it away for tube tester aficionados. This is a BK707. Probably one of my favorite to use tube testers. Not the most accurate, you know, if you're trying to get true measurements on stuff, because this does not measure in micromoles. It's a go, no go, or replace, you know, good replace scale. But honestly, no tube testers ever made really as simple to operate as this. 2 controls, you know, and push test, and also makes testing dual element tubes, much like that triplet or the Westmore 501. You're checking dual element tubes like a 12AX7, let's say. The sockets are all pre-wired on this, so you don't, and that's actually a good and bad thing about this. It's actually, you know, it says dynamic mutual conductance. Well, yes, that's true on that side. Anything in this end is a GM, or is not mutual conductance anymore. Mutual conductance only tests up there. Down here is an emissions tester. But like I say, this is fantastic tube tester for sorting tubes. But very simple to set up. You don't even need a tube chart if it's one of the ones that are printed on here. So, you know, you can just look up here and see they have it printed on here. And I've added some different ones, you know, tubes that I normally test that weren't pre-printed on here, but they're wired to these sockets. So all you do is find the appropriate tube socket. So let's say you're doing, I don't know, a 6SN7. Plug it in that socket. Well, actually, the first thing you do is set your heater voltage, and that'll be the, you know, the first digit of the tube numbers, your voltage, and then you set your sensitivity to whatever the number is after the tube number. And if it has 2 of them, that means it's a 2-element tube, you know, multi-section tube. So for, let's say, a 6SN7, you just set it to 6 volts. Set that to 78. Plug the tube in. Wait for it to warm up. You can, you know, check for shorts, and you don't have to change for those 2 elements. You don't have to do anything else other than press test 1 and test 2. So you can check both elements, just like with the high-end triplet laboratory or the Westmore tester. There's no other setup needed. Now, if it's a tube that's not in this pre-wired and pre-laid out section, you have to use this section down here. Now, this is not test mutual conductance. This tests for emission. But like I say, for sorting tubes, it works just fine. You get out your chart, look it up. You have 4 knobs to set, and it tests basically the same. Knobs are adjusted the same, pushing the buttons. But otherwise, like I say, it's a fantastic, fast tube tester. It's what makes this thing so nice, is the speed of checking tubes. So, you know, when you're going through a radio a lot of times, matter of fact, if you send me a radio, a tube-type radio, odds are your tubes are going to get tested on this first. This is the first tube tester, because I usually test tubes 2 times. I'm anal. Especially with radios, audio tubes, and, you know, and when you're working on 2-way radios, noisy tubes can cause a lot of problems. So that's where I like the advantage of using the high-end laboratory tester. I can test for noise where I can't on this one. But like I say, this one allows me to pop the cover off the radio. I crack this thing open, plug a tube in, good, bad. I can and I actually have this one. One of the nice things about these is these have a very sensitive shorts test. Now the triplet and the Westmore does also those high-end models, but for an everyday speed, what I call like a speed tester, which is what this thing is, it actually has a very sensitive shorts test. And you can make that more sensitive. When I calibrated this, I actually changed it to make the shorts circuit test in this even more sensitive than it was from the factory. But like I said, this is a great tester. I can just throw a tube in, test it. At the most, I have to change two knobs, press test, pop the next tube in. You know, I can trash can the bad ones. Then I can take the tubes that test good. Then I can slide over to the Westmore or the triplet, whichever one I happen to be using at the time. Like I say, I do circulate them. I've got 3 of these as well. I think you're starting to get the idea. I'm a pack rat, or a electronics instrument hoarder. But I do circulate them. So over a period of a year or so, I'll if I have 3 of a tube tester, they'll all get their about 3 to 4 month run. But like I say, after testing for, it's a good tube's worth testing farther, then I can break out the really high-end tube tester and test it on that. So, but if you're new into radio, you don't even have to have something as nice as this, And like I say, this isn't what I'd call a precision instrument. It is. I mean, it's a very good tester, but you can't take accurate readings with it because it does not measure in micromodes. So let me pause and show you something that the average Joe can afford and anyone can use. Okay, what's under the rag? Yeah, it doesn't have a cover. Another Heathkit, or this is a Heathkit TC3. Now, for the average person, you've got a radio, hell, television, whatever it happens to be, doesn't really matter. Tube tester like this, honestly, probably all you really need. You just need to see if you've got a good or bad tube. This thing will tell it to you. Like, it's an emissions tester, so it does not test mutual conductance. Bad to good in the questionable area. But honestly, I have used this thing, and it works just fine. Even old tube testers like this that I don't have a use for this because I have the high-end testers. I really don't need it. I still use them. Just for, I guess, nostalgia's sake, I guess you could almost say. I'll crack this little sucker out when I'm doing the initial testing on tubes. This one's just perfect. I can test it, good or bad. Then I can go over and use one of my other testers to, get really good measurements on them, test for noise, and see really how well they perform. If I need to on the high-end tester, I can, match plate current. But, like I say, really nice tester, very simple to operate, roll chart. Trying to get it so the reflection's not blanking out the window there, but it's real easy to see bottom, top. So let's just bring up let's say that one right there, or actually it doesn't really matter what tube, pick any tube. So if you were doing let's say a 6U7 is a good example. So type 2. So you go over and get out far enough to where you can see me changing the controls. So type 2, so that goes to 2. Filament voltage is 6.3, which it's already on. Plate to 30, which it was really close. Now, top, so start out with all of your levers, because these can be put up or down, so make sure you start out with all these in the middle. So switches you want in the top position are C, D, and K. So C, D, K, and then bottom are E, G, and H. So E, G, and H. And that's it. You're ready to test. Plug your tube in. Has a... Now, before you test any tube, you always want to check it for shorts, because if it has shorts, if it has a short and you then press the test button, you may burn the transformer out. If the fuse or fuse light doesn't blow fast enough, you stand a chance of damaging your tube tester permanently. But always check for shorts. That's the first thing you do once you plug a tube in. But and just pull down the spring-loaded test switch, read the meter. Like I say, great tester for the average Joe. Nothing complicated, very simple to use. So you don't need the high-end stuff. You don't need to spend $1,500, $2,000 on a high-end tester. You can get by one of these things that can be had for very little money. And I wanted to show one last instrument. I know it's not a tube tester, but it's worth noting because it's actually from the era. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show in this video is, and this is a rare guy, you really don't see a lot of them. This is a precision apparatus from Precision Test Equipment Company, and this is a semiconductor analyzer. And nice that it comes with all the original paperwork, everything, you know. But this is actually a very nice little guy. I can test transistors and diodes with this, you know, even modern production. I can test modern production semiconductors with this. But works very well. You can actually, like I say, do curve tracing with this. Like I say, actually all you really need to do curve tracing is print out, you go online and get that, just go online, print out a piece of logarithmic graph paper, and you can then, using this and that logarithmic graph paper, hand do, which I assume is how they probably did them back in the day before they came out with the actual, you know, like the Textronics curve tracers. They do it old school, using something like this, and you can curve trace with this. It's just a little bit complicated, but you can test semiconductors. You test collector, emitter, and base shorts. You can do comparative ICBO measurements. You know, in terms of like collector current, test for leakage. You can take direct beta measurements, which is the gain of the transistor. You can test diodes, test crystal diodes on this. Like I say, it's a really handy little guy. You don't really see him much anymore. This one works perfectly. I have it calibrated. The only thing is there's a little bit of discoloration in the aluminum here, and up around here. I don't know if something was spilled. Internally, it's mint. I mean, absolutely mint condition. Of course, I went through it and recapped that all the electrolytic capacity, any out-of-spec resistors, whatnot, were replaced. But you know, the faceplate's got some oxidation, so it was cleaned up, and there's a little bit of specks here and whatnot. So it was cleaned up best as possible, but it's still in very nice shape. But yeah, and I actually use this one every once in a while. You know, don't need ultra high-end testers, you know, modern testers. Occasionally, just like I say, more or less for nostalgia. You know, using equipment like my grandfather or uncle would have used back in the day. I'll crack this little critter out and give it a run. You know, blow the cobwebs out of it, as they say. So, yeah, there's just a preview of some of the equipment I might be using on your equipment if I'm doing repairs on it. Just, you know, if it's older older equipment. But like I say, I wanted to start the video out to show that be persistent. Just because you have something that's broken and has the impossible to find part, there's no such thing. Enough time and persistence in searching, and you will find your part, because that's exactly what I did. I found my long-lost meter. I can bring another classic tube tester back to life again.